Hi everybody, my name is Larsen. If you practice soloing over a song, then what you're trying to learn is to be as free as possible to solo over the song without losing the connection to the progression that you're playing over. In this video I'm going to go over 3 different exercises that I use both for myself and I also give it to my students that are going to help you strengthen that and give you more freedom when you're improvising. Of course, when you're working on them on a song, you're also just going to get better at playing the song, but I think also in general they're improving your improvisational skills and it's going to branch out to other songs that you're playing as well. If you want to learn more on jazz guitar, so on improvising over chord progressions and playing chord voicings with extensions, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to be sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. To demonstrate the 3 exercises, which actually might be 4 exercises, I think I'll add sort of an extra one that's a little bit less consequent at the end because there's another thing that's really useful to check out. But to demonstrate these 3 exercises, then I've chosen the song Solar, mostly just because it's a short form. It has quite a lot of chord changes, but it's not too complicated and there's a fair chance that you already know it. So that makes it a little bit easier to just really figure out what I'm doing when I'm going through the exercises. I'm not going to write anything out that I'm playing in this video because it's just about the approach and you can really mess around with it yourself. What you're going to learn something from in this is doing the exercises. It's not about what I play really. But you will see that it becomes kind of clear when I start doing the exercises. Let's just get to it. This first exercise is something that I also already made videos on other songs than Solar, because this is about just improvising with the arpeggio notes. So really just the basic 4-note arpeggio of each of the chords. And I find this to be a really useful exercise if you're trying to learn a new song and really want to sort of get a good connection between the lines that you play and the harmony that's in the tune. So when you do this, this is going to help you figure out which notes in the chord that if you play them you can really hear that the chords are changing. So really also like what notes do you want to hit so that you can hear the chords, because what you're going to be aiming for with this is that you can play sort of logical melodies but at the same time with fewer notes, because you're sort of limited to just the arpeggio notes. You can't just play too many 8-note lines. That's not going to sound that nice. And at the same time you still want to make something that makes sense and that's going to be clear so that you can hear it when the chords are changing and that you're targeting the notes that are really telling you, okay, now we changed chord, and you can hear that and it's kind of easy to figure out because you only have 4 notes to choose from. So when you work on this, it's going to help you connect what you're playing to the song and to the specific harmony of the tune. One thing that I did when I was playing this was that I reduced the harmony in 2 places, and you don't have to do that, but it's in this case because of the tempo I'm playing in. I just found it easier to reduce the places where we have 2 chords in the bar, so the E flat minor, A flat 7 and the D half diminished G7 to just 1 chord. And in both cases I just reduced it to the dominant because it's a cadence and they are really cadences that are resolving to a tonic, and that means it's just easier to sort of disregard the 2 chord and just play the dominant. So those kind of things you might want to think about a bit. But for the rest you can also of course choose a tempo that's a little bit lower and then really nail all the changes. Really what I think you want to work on is just your ability to play simple but melodic solos just with the arpeggios. And it's really going to help you, your ear for melody, and it's going to develop your ability to just play some of the stuff that you think sounds good, and you're going to be looking for the melodies that you think sound good, and you can't just rely on the things that you're used to playing and all your standard lines when you're doing stuff like this. this exercise is about playing a solo just in one position. So I'm really trying to stay within this position, maybe moving sort of or stretching out to one position on either side. But really I want to stay in this area of the neck. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to work on just having a really good vocabulary and a really good overview of what is going on here. And in that way I can sort of work on getting rid of any gaps that I have on the neck or any places where I can't really get to. Usually this is the kind of exercise that I go to when I'm playing a song and I played it for some time, and I suddenly start to realize, well, I'm never playing it around here, or I'm never playing it somewhere else, and then I'll maybe just do a few choruses just in that position, really just to figure out, like, okay, how can I bridge those gaps, how can I get used to playing in this position, what is it that I can't find? And if I start looking for that, sometimes you have to stop and just look at, okay, how can I connect this, or how can I find a line that goes from this chord to this chord? But in general, if you're just slowing down the tempo a little bit and then just playing in one position, forcing yourself to staying in that position, then you're going to have a much better chance of creating an overview, and it's going to open up a lot in that song. And of course, when you do this, I think this is the kind of exercise that you might want to do it sort of for all 7 positions for a song or two, but in general, I think you just want to try it out in different songs and just work on it and say, well, now today I'm just going to try and see how is it to play in this position. Or if you find a spot where you think, well, I can't play it in this position, work a bit on that. And you don't have to be too consequent about it, because whenever you're doing this, also for other tunes, this is something that's going to help. There is so much in the way of thinking that you're training more than what you're actually playing. You don't really have to worry too much about what you're actually improvising. I think you have to think more about the process of having the overview and sort of connecting the dots to play the solo. And that's what you're really practicing with an exercise like this. In this third exercise, I'm doing the opposite of what I did in the second exercise, because now I'm not staying in one position and really just trying to keep an overview in that position. I'm forcing myself to move. So what I did was that I started, I think I started down here anyway, and then I just moved up, back and forth in the 2 choruses to end up here. And the idea is that you're trying to connect your lines across positions. So you're forcing yourself to change position, but you kind of still want to play a solo that makes sense. And in that way, you're kind of forcing yourself to not sort of sit in the stuff that's really comfortable, because the fact that you're moving is going to make it impossible for you to just sort of relax. You really have to think ahead about what you can play on the next chord, and you really have to work on ways of connecting the different things that you can play in the different positions. And in that way, you can't really rely too much on your habits, and you really have to work on just getting the music to make sense while you're on the move, and you're kind of forced to think about it like that. And that's a very healthy exercise to check out, because it really does kind of help you connect your the ideas that you already know in the different positions in new ways, and in that way you're getting more free and improvising, and you are sort of really checking if you have the ability to play over this tune all places in the neck, which will of course help you to go back to the second exercise if you have a place where you always get stuck. So that's something that I check out once in a while, just to check how well I know a song. And it is a little bit of a difficult exercise. Maybe you don't want to do it with a whole tune. When I started working on this, I was just working with like a 1-6-2-5 with altered dominance, and that's or just a 2-5-1 or something like this. You can start with that if you're not used to thinking like this, and for the rest it's just moving through the positions, connecting everything, and being sort of as coherent and as free as possible. And I think if you're familiar with playing in all the positions, you'll find that it's actually easier than you think, because it might sound, to me when I started working on this, it sounded more difficult than it turned out to be, at least. So give that a go and see what you think. These 3 exercises are exercises that I use quite a lot when I'm studying tunes. I kind of use them in different ways. So of course, just playing with the arpeggios, I will do that mostly when I'm really learning the tune and just to get used to it. But I also tend to sometimes return to it later, because it's sort of a way where I don't really get to play stuff that's in my fingers, and I'm relying a lot less on licks, and I still have to really sort of nail the harmony and get that to make sense, and also play some nice melodies. And I find that really useful for just developing your ability to play melodies, which is definitely a skill that you want to work on if you want to improvise on guitar. The other exercises are a little bit more technical in the sense that they're about just checking and working on improving your ability to play this song or this chord progression at any point of the neck, and also how you can move through it, and how well developed your overview of the different scale positions and arpeggios and lines going through the progression are. And I find them useful just to, again, sort of push myself to come up with some new stuff and get some more freedom. And sometimes you come up with something which you can sort of fall back on and work with as an interesting new line that you just found for this song that you come across. And I guess that's a little bit what I'm doing with that. So they're not only just checking the technique, but also trying to develop material that I can sort of put into use on the song. I think that's an important thing. Another thing that I do once in a while, and that's the fourth exercise, which I'm not, it's not sort of theoretically as consequent as the other ones, because what I do is I usually just take one note and then try and voice lead it through the progression, and then maybe play around it. So what I mean by that is, if we take solar, so if I start on the third, so if I start on the E flat, and then for the next chord I'll go to the D, because that's the fifth of that chord, and now I'm just voice leading it down. I could voice lead it up as well, actually, and then maybe the D flat on the C7, and of course the C on the F major 7, and then C again on the F minor, maybe a flat 9 on the B flat, so the B, and then the fifth, so the B flat on the E flat major 7, and then probably I will actually keep the B flat on the E flat minor 7 and then use that as a 9. So this is where it's like, it's not a theoretically consequent way of working. It's just trying to have some notes that are moving, and then try and use those for improvisation later. So I'm using the B flat again on the 2-5 to D flat, then I can go to the A flat on the D flat major 7, and then probably the G and the G7. And the kind of lines I can make with that, just as a sort of an exercise, just to have this sort of movement through the changes, could be something like this. So as you can tell, this is not as consequent, and I am going away from the rules, but I'm just trying to keep that line, and anyway thinking about, for each of the chords, if you take different melody notes and take them through the changes like this, and realize like, okay, they're going to stay on this chord and they're going to move in this one, that can be useful to get used to this way of thinking, because it's going to give you an idea about what you need to do with the different notes that you're playing while you're soloing. So for that, I find that to be a really useful thing to mess around with. And I also kind of like the kind of solo that I end up with doing this, as you can tell. So basically what I did was I played the two choruses, and then first just the high octaves, and then the same just from a lower octave. And the lower octave was a little bit less clear, I was a little bit more free in it there, and that's probably how I would approach that when I'm working with it. But this way of thinking, of just trying to check what happens with a note if you just let it move through the changes, and of course you can move it up as well. That's not so important. It's more about finding a new sort of melodic direction where you just have one note and you have to play around that one note, but it's going to help you come up with some new things and sort of use maybe different arpeggios or use different melodic ideas, and that's really what these exercises are also about for me. If you want to work more on jazz guitar, if you want to improve your ability to improvise, make chord melodies, or reharmonize jazz standards, then subscribe to my channel. I publish a new lesson every Thursday, and I've been doing this for quite some time, So there's already a lot of material available on my channel. If you want to help me keep making all these videos, then please check out my Patreon page. I have a small community of people supporting me on Patreon, and I'm very grateful for their support, and that's what makes it possible for me to keep on going with making all these free YouTube videos. If you support me on Patreon, I can also give you something in return, because you can get access to some extra videos connected to the weekly YouTube lessons, or so there's access to some web store lessons, and also to a monthly chord melody. So there's a lot of stuff happening on Patreon, and I hope that you want to check it out and maybe support my videos. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.